YouTube page, and the video and audio are being recorded. Heather, will you please call row?
Yes, Dr. Mohammed Barber.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Colby Burks. Miss Lori Harper.
Here.
Miss Karen Hoover.
Here.
Chair Lucas Minzer. Mr. Richard Nelson.
Here. Sorry.
That's it. Miss Vidya Ravichandran.
Here.
Wonderful. And Mr. Kevin Weaver.
Here.
All right. You have quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Trying to scan the people. See again if Kelly Ellis was in attendance, but let's see her name on the screen. Anyway, she will her formal appointment will be made at next week's meetings, and she just wanted to welcome her if she was here today. But moving on to the minutes from our last ASI meeting, we're in your meeting materials. Are there any objections to those presented? If none, they are approved as distributed. So today, I'm really excited. Today's a big day. Over the last year, our staff has diligently been working hard to develop a comprehensive strategic plan for Kentucky's post-secondary education system. And today, we'll take our final look at each of the components before it's presented to the full council for our approval at next week's board meeting. Before I turn it over to Lee, I wanted to again thank the members of this committee for their commitment on the project. This committee normally meets 5 times a year, and I've appreciated your willingness to show up and work monthly. And I also really want to thank Lee, Melissa, Travis, Grace, and Heather for their work in coordinating all these steps that have taken place. Again, kudos to the CPE staff. Y'all have done a great job. With that, I will turn it over to Lee.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair Harper. Before I get going, I wanted to turn it back to my boss, Aaron Thompson, to see if he had any comments or introductions before we jumped into this approval process.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Chair Harper. It's good to see everybody. It's a nice fall day, and I know that in fact you'd rather be curled up. No, you wouldn't. You'd rather be listening to us talk about our strategic agenda and our degree production. You know, there's a few things I just want to say. Chair Harper, thank you for thanking the staff. I want to thank them also. This was a feat. I want to thank this committee. I mean, this has been a long haul, but this is a good product. I will say, very good product. I'm very happy that we really have focused on the 60 to 30 as our North Star and really design priorities and processes and strategies around that. And so I want to say thanks for that. You're going to hear a lot more about our degree production today too, and I'm happy to show you that. And I'm also going to tell you though, in not such a positive way, because I'm not sure how to make this positive, we just don't know what COVID is going to do to us down the road fully yet. We know it's going to have an effect. It already is. We have lower enrollments. We have people dropping out. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why we need to be worried. And it's also all kinds of reasons why we need to be doubling down on this new agenda that we have. Our work it was already hard, and I'm proud to say in Kentucky, we've done some great things. If you're looking at any other states, you know, in higher ed, we're closing gaps as fast or faster than any other state. We have actually built our short-term credentials to focus on the workforce while building out our graduate and undergraduate credentials. But we also have a Kentucky Community and Technical College now that's significantly smaller than it was when we started our last agenda. And we have a college going rate that's significantly lower. I mean, these are all the things that this committee and our board has to really focus on as we think about how we live out this next agenda. So as we approve this wonderful agenda today, I guess I just want to say the work seems like it's now doubled down. I mean, it's not just begun. It's like we're starting to dig out again, and COVID has produced that. Another thing that I think we have to think about with this agenda is that it focuses heavily on the value proposition. And that is even more important than ever. So this is what I consider to be a time when all of us are going to have to see what we kind of bring to this table to offer up to make sure that our agenda holds true enough. But, you know, this is a Kentucky thing. This is our economy. This is our workforce. And so I do want to thank you all for that. I won't take up a lot of time, Lee, other than just say thank you. And Melissa, all of you for the work you've done in producing this. And with that, Chair Harper, I'll just turn it back over to Lee. But let me say this. I know some of you are going to hear at our board meeting. You know what's going on with KSU. We will fill you in fully at the work group and at the board meeting. Also, you know, our budget that we'll be asking you to approve, as well as our campus budgets that our finance committee approved. I mean, our campus asked that the finance committee approved yesterday. But I know some of you have asked me about KSU, and I just wanted to say that at our work group next week, we will go in full detail and we'll be asking for some approvals from you then on some of the outlines that we are giving you to help move KSU forward. Lee, sorry, back to you.
No, that's fine. Thank you, President Thompson. And you all have gotten this schedule from Heather, but that work session is going to be Thursday at 2, I believe, Heather, is that correct? So we are devoting a good portion of that to a deep discussion of KSU in anticipation of some actions that the board will be needing to take on that the following day. So Heather, if you want to pull up the slide presentation, I will say on behalf of staff, we are very pleased to present the 2022-2030 strategic agenda for post-secondary education for consideration by this committee today and approval by the full board next week. We included a draft document in your board books. We are calling this the words only version. So if you looked at it and you said, well, this really doesn't look like a finished product. What you received is narrative, and it really contains the framework, and it provides the rationale and focus, really has put the meat on the bones of the work that this committee has done over the past 9 months or so. And a big shout out to Melissa Young for doing that heavy lifting on the draft. So we are going to focus, we're not going to go through the draft. We are going to focus again on the framework. And in particular, we're going to be revisiting an area that we didn't get to because we had to cancel the last ASI meeting due to some scheduling conflicts. The focus of that meeting was going to be on the review and approval of state level strategies and key indicators. So while the committee will be considering the entire agenda today, I just wanted to remind folks that this will be the first time that the committee has seen final state strategies and finalized key performance indicators, or KPIs. You've seen earlier iterations, but not the final version. So I did want to highlight that before we jumped in. Heather, if you'll take us to the next slide. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the process it took to get to where we are today. You all are very aware of the amount of research and focus group interviews and one-on-one interviews and external input that we received in the development of this agenda. And you also know that we really made an effort to take a deliberative approach as we developed the agenda, sort of going step by step in developing the mission and vision and values and overall structure and content. So we hope that this process has been helpful to the committee as we come to the finish line here. The final outcome reflects what we believe, and we hope you will believe, are the priorities and challenges that are facing higher ed in Kentucky today. But it also reflects, I think, a collective vision and really a set of aspirations of where higher ed needs to focus its time and energy and attention over the next 8 years, if we're really going to improve educational opportunity for all citizens and drive a healthy economy. As you know, and as President Thompson just mentioned, this agenda continues to embrace the 60 by 30 educational attainment goal, which was established in the last agenda back in 2015. It's our North Star, as President Thompson said today, and as he said before, this is really what keeps us focused and reminds us that at the end of the day, education is transformative and it's essential, not just for individuals, but for Kentucky as a Commonwealth as a whole. This agenda really leans into the notion and the idea that equity is critical, that all citizens, particularly those from populations that historically have been left behind, must have access to high quality programs and the preparation and the information and the support systems to be successful. So equity is a cross-cutting priority in this agenda. And operationally, that means that in every objective and strategy and measure of success, equity will be a central consideration. In addition to equity, as a cross-cutting consideration, this agenda embraces, as you know, 5 strategic priority areas: affordability, transitions, success, talent, and value. So we're going to take you through each of these priority areas, and we're going to talk about the key objectives and state level strategies that are going to drive this work. And we'll also talk about how we're going to measure progress in each area. But before we turn to that, I am going to ask Melissa Young to discuss the agenda's mission, vision, and values.
Hi, thanks, Lee. Going back to the very beginning, you'll remember that this was really the first bit of the agenda that we tackled as a committee. Just to remind you that the mission really is reflective of CPE, well, not CPE, the public post-secondary systems mission. And that mission really is to drive innovation, enhance public health and well-being, break cycles of generational poverty, improve quality of life, and preparing students to be really lifelong learners and to excel in what we're calling the knowledge-based economy. So that's our mission as a system, as a collective group of institutions and policy organizations. Our vision, where we hope to go in the next decade, we hope to be a national leader in building a strong, sustainable, and equitable economy through increased educational attainment and affordable, high-quality post-secondary programs. And that really hits on 2 of our big concerns: is affordability, which I think you'll see has become more prominent in this agenda than the last agenda. And also, as Lee said, our educational attainment goal, which really drives all that we do. And it drives all that we do because we know that if more people become highly educated, we will have a better state, we'll have a better economy, and people will have a better quality of life. And finally, the values there at the bottom, you've seen them before, they're in no particular order, but those are the principles that we'll embrace as we move forward with this agenda. Next slide. Lee.
So, thanks, Melissa. So the first strategic area of focus is college affordability. And as Melissa said, this was a top of mind issue in virtually every interview and focus group discussion that we have had, and is certainly a prominent issue in all conversations with students and families and in the media. So whether these affordability barriers are perceived or they are real, our research and a lot of other research shows that this is the major barrier to enrollment and completion. There are 2 objectives that will drive our work in this area. The first is to reduce financial barriers to college enrollment and completion. So this objective is about addressing the real costs and expenses associated with going to college. In terms of state level strategies, and keep in mind that when we talk about state level strategies throughout this agenda, these are very high level. So if you're, I'm sure you'll have questions about, how are we going to accomplish this and what, sort of specific plan do you have for each area? These conversations are certainly in process, and over the next several months, we will be bringing you detailed implementation plans in each area. So the first state level strategy under this objective is to work with campuses and other leaders to increase access to grants and scholarships for low and middle income students. This is certainly an area of work that has been very important to this agency and our state partners and institutions for some time. I will say Kentucky has had a very robust system of state financial aid. And our campuses increasingly are devoting more of their institutional resources to provide institutional aid for students. And more of that is for low and middle income students. What we want to do over the next 8 years is really dive deeper into this area, understand effective practices, and develop strategies that we feel could really amplify and accelerate this work. And so this will be a key area of focus for us in terms of state level strategy. The second state level strategy in this area is moderating increases in tuition and mandatory fees at our public institutions. This is certainly a very familiar strategy that the council is engaged in and has been engaged in for many years. And I will say over the last 5 years, particularly as President Thompson has taken over, there has been even more of a sort of thoughtful and intentional effort to limit increases in tuition and mandatory fees to ensure that those savings are passed on to students, while at the same time supporting the infrastructure and programmatic needs of the campuses. And I think that our attention and the attention of the council will continue to focus in that area. And then the third state level strategy is to increase opportunities for institutional collaboration to reduce campus expenditures and limit increase in college costs. So this is an area of work that we have not been as sort of overtly involved in. We certainly have done work in this area, and I think one prominent area is the Kentucky Virtual Library that we don't talk enough about. This is a collaborative effort that has gone on for a number of years that has allowed the state institutions to jointly purchase library resources and databases, and has really saved the state millions and millions of dollars. So we think there are a number of opportunities for joint purchasing and additional collaborative work that can contribute to cost savings for students and their families. So are there any questions about these before we move on to the next objective? Okay, Heather, next slide. So the second objective is about addressing the communications and advising side of the affordability. We know that there's still too much misunderstanding and lack of consistent messaging about how to pay for college. This isn't just for first generation families. We talk to families all the time that are really baffled in many ways about the process for paying for college, what's involved, all the pieces and parts. And so this is an area of work that this board has been very interested in for some time. And through partnerships and coordination with KDE and Kia and the campuses and other organizations that are doing strong work in these areas, we feel there's a lot more that can be done over the next 8 years to advance this objective. So in terms of state level strategies, we want to provide informational resources and advising strategies for counselors, teachers, and community partners on paying for college. There's been a lot of discussion around this strategy already through the Commonwealth Continuum. And so, under the leadership of Amanda Ellis and Jennifer Fraker and President Thompson and others, we will be bringing to you a very thought out set of implementation strategies for this particular state level strategy. The second is to coordinate and support efforts to increase the number of Kentuckians who complete the FAFSA. And we've talked with the board a number of times over the last year about work that's going on in this area. We think there is a lot more work to be done, and so we will be doubling down in this area. And then the third strategy is to establish state-level networks for high school counselors and other college access professionals to share effective practices and build expertise and develop common outreach messaging. So we know that, and we've talked about this many times before, that our high school counselors are overburdened. There is not consistent, I think, professional development for them in this area of paying for college. And I think that there is a common, among many state agencies, a common desire to really provide some networking for high school counselors and other college access professionals to help them and provide them with the tools to in turn help their students. And so that work is starting and is ongoing. Are there any questions about these three state level strategies? If not, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Grace Dye on our data and advanced analytics team, who's going to talk about the key performance metrics for this strategic priority area.
Thank you, Lee. Next slide, please, Heather. So under affordability, we have 3 key performance indicators and 2 contextual metrics. So the first KPI is unmet financial need, which is basically the leftover amount of money that students need to pay on their own. So we'll use the cost of attendance minus the sum of expected family contribution and all kinds of scholarships and grants. And this is going to be a both state and campus level metric, which means we'll set up targets on each campus as well as the state as a whole. The second KPI is time to degree, which refers to the total number of academic years enrolled before a degree or credential completion, which will also be a state and campus level metric. The last KPI under affordability is FAFSA completion. So for this metric, we will look at the percent of recent high school graduates who matriculated to a Kentucky public institution and also completed a FAFSA application. And this will be just a state level metric. For context metrics, we will not set up targets, but we will use them as contextual information to provide more nuances for each of those 5 priorities. So we have direct cost, which includes the tuition and mandatory fees, and cumulative undergraduate debt at completion as 2 context metrics under affordability.
Thank you, Grace. Are there any questions about the key performance metrics or the context metrics that we'll be tracking? Of course, we can pull a lot of other data anytime there's specific questions about college affordability, but these will be part of the dashboard that you'll be seeing regularly. If not, Melissa, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about transitions.
Thanks, Lee. So you heard a little bit about the Commonwealth Education Continuum. I think that's a very good example of a statewide strategy that we're using to start to dig into this issue of helping students really make that smooth transition from high school graduation to their first year of college. This is an issue that certainly we've been dealing with in the last couple iterations of our strategic agenda. You may remember, if you've been here a while, that one of our concerns last time was to look at developmental education and really move to a co-curricular or a model there where people are taking credit-bearing courses and getting additional assistance. So this really builds on that work and looks more at early college experiences, which is the dual credit piece. We've got a good foundation there, but we really want to accelerate that work. So objective 3 is to increase students' readiness to enter post-secondary education. Like I said, the first strategy that we'll be looking at a statewide level is to expand access to high quality early post-secondary opportunities. That's the not only dual credit and AP and IB and some of those programs, but But really, programs where people come, bridge programs where they come on campus before their freshman year to get additional assistance and academic support. 3B is to develop digital resources to help students explore career interests and college options. You may have heard that we have been planning for some time a portal, and I think that is also in our budget request money for that. But this would really be just another helpful tool in the toolbox that counselors could use and parents and everyone really to just do a better job earlier of starting to explore your post-secondary and career options. And the third 3C here is to partner with public K-12 schools and post-secondary institutions to provide more outreach to students to help them prepare and plan for college. As you know, our Gear Up Kentucky program is going to be a valuable partner in that work. They deal routinely with middle and high schools across the state on college going. So we will continue that work and find other ways to deepen and expand that mission. Anybody have any questions about Objective 3 or any of the statewide strategies outlined here? If not, let's move to the next objective, which is to increase enrollment in post-secondary education. Now that's going to be a very big emphasis. You heard Dr. Thompson say that enrollment is really going to be an issue. And not just because of COVID, although that certainly has hurt our enrollment numbers. We really have, I think if you've read the narrative that we provided, we really have some demographic challenges that are occurring in Kentucky. By the year 2030, we're going to really see one of our smallest high school classes that we've seen in a great while in Kentucky. So, we have fewer high school students that are really in the pipeline. We also have the falling enrollment. So we're going to have some challenges here that we're going to have to really focus as a system to address. So 4A is to enhance college recruitment strategies through partnerships with post-secondary institutions and other stakeholders, with particular attention to underrepresented minority, adult, and low-income students. We've talked before about the Adult Learner Challenge. That can really be an important piece of our enrollment strategy. We haven't done as great of a job with getting non-traditional adult students into our campuses. That's going to have to be a huge focus. And the next 4B is to work with education providers to streamline and simplify our admission processes. So does anybody have any question about Objective 4? Okay, if not, let's move to the KPIs. Grace?
Thank you, Melissa. So there are two KPIs under transitions. So the first one is undergraduate enrollment, so which refers to the total number of students enrolled in 2-year and 4-year public institutions. And this is going to be a both state level and campus level metric. And the second KPI under transitions is college going rate, so which refers to the percent of recent Kentucky high school graduates who attend any in-state or out-of-state post-secondary institution within 1 year after their high school graduation. And we have 3 contextual metrics here under transitions. And the first one is gateway course completion, which examines the percent of first-time students completing college-level introductory courses in English and math. And then the total dual credit hours earned in high school. And the last context metric here is the percent of high school seniors with early college experience, including dual credit, AP, IB, etc. So I'm going to turn it back to Lee or Melissa for the next priority on success.
Thank you.
Thanks, Grace. Oh, sorry, and Melissa Bell, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Lee. So our focus on student success boils down to three main objectives. We want to increase persistence and timely completion. We want to maximize transfer and credit for prior learning. And we really want to focus on quality, because completion without quality is not a good combination. So the first objective you see on your screen is increasing persistence and completion. And the first strategy is to share, implement, and evaluate both promising and proven practices. We do this through workshops, professional development opportunities, and communities of practice, which is bringing campus partners together to talk and share with one another. And much of this work will be done through the new Kentucky Student Success Collaborative, which you're going to hear a little bit more about later on this morning. We also want to promote on-time completion. A few years ago, CPE spearheaded an effort called 15 to Finish, which encourages students to take at least 15 credit hours in the fall and 15 in the spring, or 30 credits throughout the year, in order to graduate in 2 years for an associate's degree or 4 years for a bachelor's degree. We need to ramp up these efforts and add new efforts. We're also looking at guided degree pathways so that students know exactly what's required of them so that they can stay on the path and graduate on time. Another strategy is to partner with our institutions and national organizations to address opportunity and success gaps. In addition to all the great work that our diversity, equity, and inclusion unit is doing, all the strategies in the student success area are really aimed at helping historically underserved students. And we're really going to be even more intentional in that focus going forward. And the last strategy focuses on adult learners and other non-traditional students, which aren't so non-traditional anymore. They're becoming more the norm, and we need to make sure that higher ed is meeting their needs. So you heard earlier that we're really focusing on both the transition for these adult learners to get them back into the system or into the higher ed system in the first place, but we also need to make sure that they are succeeding. Does anyone have any questions about this objective? If not, Heather, can you move to the next slide? Our next objective is to maximize transfer credit and experiential credit, or credit for prior learning. We really want to focus on credit for prior learning in this agenda because we know that valuable learning can take place outside the classroom, and students want this learning to be acknowledged, and this can actually help increase persistence and graduation. So the two strategies in this objective really boil down to ramping up our efforts to increase the number of students who transfer, but also making sure that that process is as seamless as possible and as efficient as possible, including the use of credit for prior learning and maximizing all their credit transfers. Any questions on objective 6? All right, on to objective 7. This last objective under student success focuses on quality. The objective is to ensure that academic curriculum and the co-curriculum are high quality, relevant, and inclusive. And much of this work will center around the Kentucky graduate profile, which we've presented to this committee in the past, but you're going to hear a whole lot more about this in the future. The profile is a list of 10 essential skills that graduates need to be successful in the workplace and in life. These are skills like cultural competency, leadership, critical thinking, and several others. So in addition to the focus on students acquiring these skills, we also want to look at campus offerings through the equity and inclusion lens. As I just mentioned, cultural competency is one of the skills we want students to develop, but we also want to make sure that faculty and staff are reviewing their curricula and their programs to make sure they're equity focused and inclusive. And here it's the state level. CPE wants to facilitate any professional development opportunities or other assistance we can provide to help accomplish this. Does anyone have any questions on objective 7? If not, I guess I will turn it over to Grace to talk about the metrics.
Thank you, Dr. Dale. So success has the most KPIs and context metrics. So there are 4 KPIs, and the first one is undergraduate degrees conferred, which looks at the total number of undergraduate degree and credentials produced by 4-year and 2-year public institutions, and which will be both state and campus level metric. And the second metric here is graduation rate. And for baccalaureate degree seeking students, we are looking at their graduation rate within 6 years. And for associate degree or credential seeking students at KCTCS, we are looking at that graduation rate within 3 years. And next one is the KCTCS to 4-year transfer, which looks at the percent of associate and credential seeking students who transfer to any 4-year public post-secondary institution in Kentucky within 3 years of entry, and which will be a KCTCS metric only. And we have second-year persistent rate as a state level KPI here, which looks at the percent of first-time degree and credential seeking students who continue to be enrolled for a second year of college at any post-secondary institution in Kentucky, or in the case of KCTCS, students have successfully completed a post-secondary credential during the first year. So those are 4 KPIs under success. And we have 7 context metrics here to provide more contextual information. So the first one is credit completion ratio, which looks at the ratio between the credit hours completed and credit hours attempted by degree or credential seeking students during their first year of college. And then we look at second year retention rate, which is different from second year persistent rate, captures the percent of students who continue to be enrolled in college for a second year at the same institution. And then experiential learning looks at the percent of programs that require experiential learning. And then completion rate refers to first-time, full-time credential seeking Kentucky students who graduated within 150% of normal time frame at any in-state or out-of-state post-secondary institution. And then we look at 4-year to 4-year transfer rate, which examines the percent of baccalaureate degree seeking students who transfer to any 4-year public institution in Kentucky within 4 years of entry. And then we look at the accumulative credit hours registered at first semester, which look at the percent of students who register for at least 15 credit hours at their first semester. And the last one is we also going to provide more information about persistent rate. So we will look at the second year to third year and third year to fourth year persistence rate as context information here. Yeah, so those are all the metrics under success.
Thank you, Grace. Does anybody have any questions about those key indicators or context metrics? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa Young to talk about talent.
Thanks, Lee. We're excited to pull out talent as a particular priority of this agenda. It's something that I think last time we embedded in our concept of impact, but really talent gets at the heart of one of the major purposes of post-secondary education, which is really to provide a highly skilled and trained workforce. And also to drive innovation through research and through public-private partnerships. So much of what our campuses do and their mission is that research and service mission. And this really captures that notion as well. So objective 8 is to improve the career outcomes of post-secondary education graduates. And we will do that by working with campuses to include a work-based learning or other career relevant experience in all undergraduate programs. I think you've heard Dr. Thompson say this. This is really a goal of his, that really everyone should have some kind of experience, whether it's a it's an internship or a co-op experience or a service experience, but something that really gives them valuable training for a career. 8B is to strengthen campus-based career advising and development. And this is primarily, I guess, focused on our, but not only just focused on career advising on the campuses. I think, everyone on campus could probably play a bigger role in this work, even though a lot of it is centered at the career advising offices. And 8C is to facilitate meaningful partnerships between employers, community partners, and education providers to improve the career outcomes of post-secondary programs. So that's really looking at it from a systemic, programmatic level, and really acknowledging that it takes a lot of different partners to make that happen. So does anyone have any questions about Objective 8 or the state level strategies that we'll pursue? If not, let's move to the next slide. Objective 9 is to increase research and service to support strong communities. Again, this gets at that second part of talent, which is really the acknowledgement of research and service the importance of that to our state. Strategy 9A is to identify high growth, high demand, high wage industries by region and target post-secondary programs for increased enrollment in those areas. So this is really a supply and demand kind of proposition here, where we're going to really take a deeper look by region at what employers are saying, what do they need, where are our shortages, and what are some of our emerging industries. Like we know that agri-tech is becoming increasingly an important part of our economy. So how can we support that workforce development goal? And Objective 9B is to encourage targeted research, the development of signature academic programs, and expanded community engagement, supporting Kentucky's high need priority areas. So again, this sort of touches on this idea of signature academic programs. I think you may be familiar that for a long time we have had programs of distinction. I think that you've heard Dr. Thompson talk about how important it is for the campuses to really identify their strengths and what makes them unique from other institutions in the state. And I think that helps students understand that institution as well. So we'll be advancing some of that work also under this strategy. Does anybody have any question about talent? Okay, if not, I will hand it back to Grace to talk about the key performance indicators.
Melissa. So for talent, we have 3 KPIs. So the first one is graduates working or pursuing more education. So this metric looks at the percent of certificate, associate, bachelor's degree graduates working in Kentucky or pursuing additional education 1 year after graduation. The second one is graduate professional degrees conferred. So this is going to be a state and campus level metric. And we will look at the total amount of graduate professional degrees produced in each academic year in Kentucky. And the last KPI here is educational attainment, which refers to the percent of Kentucky age 25 to 64 with a post-secondary credential. And we will also provide contextual information on some other areas related to talent, including extramural research in high demand and high need areas. And then we look at graduate enrollment, which is the percent of bachelor's recipients enrolling in graduate or professional programs within 1 year of completion. And then we look at undergraduate degrees produced in high wage and high demand fields, and also spin-off startup activities and KCTCS Workforce Solutions. And I'm going to move to Lee for the last priority.
Thank you, Grace. So the last priority area, last but not least, of course, is value. This priority area is all about helping shift and improve public and decision maker perceptions about higher education and understanding about higher education. It's about communicating the value of post-secondary education to prospective students as well as their families, to community and business leaders, and to elected leaders. And it's really about engaging the public in a conversation about college and its return on investment. And it's also about being transparent about college costs and performance and any other issues of concern. President Thompson mentioned this in his opening comments, and of course, he has been a leader in the work through his commitment to outreach during his tenure as president and before. Strong outreach and communications through his Higher Education Matters campaign and his willingness to engage deeply in this work. But we know there is a lot more work to be done. There are constant conversations publicly about the value of post-secondary education, and it is very important that we develop a very strategic approach in responding to those questions. So the first objective is to increase public belief in the power of post-secondary education. This is certainly not a small undertaking, but it's something that we are committed to at the state level. Our key strategy here, and it's a multi-pronged strategy, is to conduct a public awareness campaign and develop communication strategies to promote college going and elevate the importance of higher education to Kentucky's residents and economy. This work, as we've discussed, really has started in earnest with the Higher Education Matters campaign. We will be doubling down in this area and really building out a more structured communications effort in partnership with the campuses and other stakeholders, as well as developing other communication strategies as it makes sense to advance this notion about the return on investment of post-secondary education and the value add to Kentucky's long-term future. Next slide, please. So objective 11 is about building support for greater investment in post-secondary education. This is certainly something that this agency and this board has talked about a great deal. And as we move into the next budget cycle and legislative session, we will certainly be talking about that more directly. Key strategies in this area: 11A, communicate Kentucky higher education's return on investment, as well as the need for increased and stable state and federal support. And 11B, our second state level strategy in this area, is seeking increased funding from foundation and other external sources to support strategic agenda priorities. We know that the state is doing what they can do to support higher education through general fund appropriations, but we know we need to always be aggressive and thoughtful about seeking other forms of support, whether it be federal funding, whether it be foundation funding, or through partnerships with other stakeholders to really be creative in how we get resources to support what we need to do. So that work will be ongoing in the months and years ahead. Next slide, please. So in terms of key performance indicators, this is not necessarily an easy area of the agenda to measure with quantitative data. Certainly the agenda taken as a whole and the metrics taken as a whole in the agenda at the end of the day help quantify this idea of the value add of post-secondary education. But specific performance indicators in this area would certainly be the percent change in general fund state appropriations. We'll be tracking that obviously at the state level very closely, as well as at the institution level. But in terms of the KPI, we will be setting targets at the state level. In terms of contextual metrics, we will become much more deliberate in doing qualitative research in the form of surveys to employers, alumni, prospective students, and others. We'll also be looking closely at median annual earnings by credential level of our recent graduates and our graduates over time. So are there any questions about either the performance indicators around the value area of the agenda or any of the objectives or strategies?
We're an awfully quiet group today.
They are. If not, Heather, I'm going to get you to take us to the next couple of slides, which really talk about next steps, just so you all have a better sense of where we're going to go with the agenda moving forward. So in terms of timeline, of course, this committee is meeting today. We hope we'll adopt and recommend this agenda to the full board. The board meets on November 4th and 5th. We will take a little bit of time at the work session just to walk through at a much more briefly the full agenda with the full board, and then it will be taken as an action item to the full board on November 5th at the business meeting. Between now and the end of this calendar year, we are going to be producing and disseminating the strategic agenda document. So by that, I mean, we're going to put the graphics and the layout and really polish the document up, and then begin the process of getting it out to the audiences that we want to make sure that folks are aware of the agenda and partnership opportunities with it. And then in the winter, January through March, we will have an official public launch of the new agenda, and we'll be talking about this committee more about that later. We will be working very closely with the campuses on the development of KPI targets in each of the strategic agenda areas, as well as developing out campus strategies. You know, we've been talking about state level strategies, but each campus will be developing strategies unique to their mission and particular focus around each of the 11 objectives within the agenda. CPE staff will also be developing out implementation plans around each of the strategic agenda objectives. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to give the committee a little more detail about the target setting process. So there's a lot that goes into this, and I just want to make sure people understand that there's a process of really working with campuses to refine the definitions, the technical definitions of each of the KPIs. CPE staff is going to do a lot of analysis at the state level about where we think each campus can be on each of the KPI. And so we will be proposing to each campus targets, and then from there developing a negotiated process culminating on agreed upon targets that we'll present to the council at probably the March meeting. We'll also be meeting individually with each campus to negotiate the targets, and then they will be established through the first strategic agenda review cycle through the fall of 2024, and then will be reevaluated after that. Next slide, please. Sorry about that. Also wanted to talk a little bit about implementation plan development. As I mentioned, there'll be a comprehensive implementation plan developed for each state level strategy and objective. We will be working with each CPE staff member responsible or who has expertise in each of these strategy areas. And we'll also work with state and campus partners to develop the plans. And then we're going to obviously report regularly out to this committee and to the full board to monitor progress. And as I mentioned before, each campus will develop mission-focused strategies on each of the 11 objectives. And they too will be reporting out progress when their presidents report to the board annually. So is there any questions? This is the last slide that we have, either on the implementation plan or the target setting or anything related to the agenda. If there are no
I would also
questions,
say, for anybody who has read the narrative, if you have any questions or comments or concerns about the narrative, we can address those as well.
thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that. Madam Chair, if there are no other questions, CPE staff recommends the approval of the 2022-2030 strategic agenda for post-secondary education by this committee, and a recommendation for full approval to the board on November 5th.
Thank you. So we have a motion from the staff. So do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vidya.
Actually,
Any
I'm
other
not
further
sure.
discussion?
Ma'am, I'm not sure if,
Do I need to have two?
yeah, I'm not sure if the staff can make the motion. I believe somebody from the council has
Okay.
to.
All right. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
All right, thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor to move forward, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Thank you. Motion carries. I guess now we will have, just moving on the agenda, post-secondary degrees and credential discussion. Lee and Grace will lead that discussion.
Thank you, Chair Harper, and I'm going to immediately turn it over to Grace, who is going to walk the committee through the findings of the 2021 degrees and credentials.
Thank you, Lee. I'm going to share my screen here. Can you all see my screen here?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. So good morning again, everyone. So this report looks at the Kentucky degree and credential production over the last 6 years, from the academic year of 2015-16 to the most recent academic year completed, 2020-21. So for today's presentation, I will first give you a quick overview of the total degree and credential production over the last 6 years in Kentucky. And then I will show you some of the recent numbers about the baccalaureate degrees produced at four-year public and IQ institutions, as well as the credentials and degrees produced at KCTCS. And then we will move to graduate degrees produced at four-year public and IQ institutions, which include graduate certificate, master's, doctoral degrees, and specialist. So one note that I want to point out here, so for the first three bullet points included in this slide, we are talking about degree and credential. So we are counting every degree and credential produced in Kentucky. In other words, the unit of analysis here is degree or credential instead of students. So those are called duplicated degree and credential counts. So keep that in mind. So for the fourth bullet point here, we are looking at students, especially undergraduate students. We look at the profile of undergraduate degree credential completers based on their race, ethnicity, residence status, and their age. Working age students refer to students age 25 to 64 at the completion of their degree or credential. Okay. So first, let's take a look at the total degree and credential production over the last 6 years. So within the 2020-21 academic year, Kentucky produced in total 81,317 post-secondary degrees and credentials. Although this is a big increase in comparison to the total number that produced in the academic year of 2015 and 16, but which is about 23.53% increase. We see there's a slight decrease from 2019-20 to 2020-21, which is about 0.2% decrease. And this change here may reflect the effect of COVID on post-secondary degree and credential production in Kentucky. And let's take a closer look at those 81,317 degrees and credentials produced in 2020-21. We see the biggest proportion here is undergraduate certificate, which is about 34.50%, followed by a baccalaureate degree, 28.81%, and a graduate degree in credential, which is about 20.57%. Okay. And this slide presents you with the total baccalaureate degrees produced by four-year public and IQ institutions over the last 6 years. So let's take a look at the blue bars first, which represent the total number of baccalaureate degrees produced at both four-year public and IQ institutions. The pattern for those blue bars, the trend for those blue bars over those 6 academic years pretty much align with what we saw from the last slide about the total degree and credential production in Kentucky. So we see the number increased from 15-16 to 16-17, and it continued to increase until 2020-21. So in 2020-21, we produced in total 23,423 baccalaureate degrees, and which is about 2.17% decrease from the last year. And for four-year public, we see the decrease is even bigger, which is 3.93% decrease. However, unlike four-year public, we see an increase in baccalaureate degree production at IQ institutions in 2020-21, which is about 4.84% increase, and which is quite a big increase here. So if we talk about the influence of COVID on degree credential production, especially for the academic year of 2020-21, then we can see that COVID has a much bigger negative influence on four-year public institutions than IQ institutions, especially in baccalaureate degree production here. All right. So next slide here presents you the total degrees and credentials produced at KCTCS, including associate degrees, undergraduate certificates, and diplomas. So first, there's a good news. In 2020-21, KCTCS produced in total 39,458 degrees and credentials. Although the increase rate for 2020-21 is not as high as previous years, right? But we still see about 0.43% increase in the degree and credential production at KCTCS from 2019-20 to 2020-21. So unduplicated counts here refer to the unique number of students that the total number of degrees and credentials are awarded to. So looking at the trend of the unduplicated numbers over the years, here comes another good news. We see the number of students earned a degree or credential from KCTCS increased over years. Okay. So next slide presents you the total graduate degree and credential produced at four-year public and IQ institutions. First, we see in 2020-21, Kentucky produced in total 15,728 graduate degrees and credentials, which is about 0.50% decrease from the total number produced in 2019-20. So if we look at the numbers produced at four-year public and IQ separately, then we see for four-year public, there's about 7.11% increase from 2019-20 to 2020-21. While there's about 7.30% decrease for IQ. Actually, over the last 6 years, we saw there's a rapid increase over years in graduate degree and credential production for IQ institutions. But for last year, for the 2020-21 academic year, there is a decrease. So those are some of the highlights about degree and credential production. So next few slides will cover some of the findings related to the profile of undergraduate degree and credential completers. So first, let us look at the undergraduate degree and credential completers who are URM students. So let's take a look at the academic year of 2020-21 first, okay? So in 2020-21, we see a total of 6,125 URM students who completed at least one undergraduate degree or credential, which takes about 14.19% of all completers. Among all the KCTCS completers, we see about 13.85% of them are URM. And for IQ, it's about 13.98%. And for four-year public institutions, it's about 14.64%. So when we look at the trends over years for all of those three sectors, we see the percent of completers who are URM students increased over the last 6 years. There's an interesting finding here for KCTCS. Although we see there's an increase in the total number of URM completers in 2020-21 in comparison to 2019-20, right? So we see there's an increase in the numbers between those two academic years, but the percent of completers who are URM students slightly decreased from 13.95% to 13.85%. And the opposite finding here for four-year public institutions, even though the total number slightly decreased from 2019 to 20 to 2020, 21, but the percent increased from 14.21% to 14.64%. So the conclusion here is that the completers are more diverse in four-year public institutions in 2020-21 in comparison to 2019-20, while the completers are less diverse in KCTCS in 2020-21 compared with the previous year, 2019-20. So this next slide looks at the total number and percent of undergraduate degree and credential completers who are in-state students. So among all the undergraduate degree and credential completers in the academic year 2020-21, we see a total number of 33,183 completers are in-state students, which takes about 83.84% of all completers. So overall, we see the total number increased over years, so did the percentages here. Let's take a look at the number and percent by each sector. Not surprisingly, KCTCS has the bigger proportion of in-state completers in comparison to four-year public and IQ institutions. And IQ institution has more out-of-state completers in comparison to two-year and four-year public institutions. And the numbers and the percentages both increased from 2019-20 to 2020-21 at KCTCS and IQ. But for four-year public institutions, there's a slight decrease. And the last slide here. Oh, sorry. We will looking at the undergraduate degree and credential completers who are working age students. So among all the 6 academic years, we see the academic year of 2020-21 had almost the lowest total number of working age students. And the percent of undergraduate degree and credential completers who are working students for 2020-21 is the lowest in comparison to the other 5 academic years, which is about 34.06%. And the similar pattern found for 2-year and 4-year public institutions. The percent of completers or adult learners dropped in 2020-21. However, for IQ institution, there was an increase in the academic year of 2020 and 21. So there are a lot of numbers presented during this presentation. So if you have any questions, please do it. Let us know. We would like to have more discussions with you all.
Any questions? Thank you, Grace. That really gives us a broad overarching look at where we're going and where we've been. So now we're going to move on to the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative. We've heard about this a few times. It's officially launched. A virtual event was held with speakers that included both the governor and the lieutenant governor, along with Senator Max Wise and Representative Jimmy Higdon. Today, Lily Mason McKinley, who will leads this work, will tell us about the launch and the collaborative of upcoming work.
Thank you. Well, I'm very excited to be able to be here today. So excited about the launch that we had on Monday. It was just a lot of energy. We had 280 participants from across the state join us live for that event, and the recording is posted on our website if anyone would be interested in watching it. So I wanted to kick off just sharing the video recording that Governor Beshear shared that helped us introduce and launch the collaborative.
I believe education is key to growing our economy, addressing inequities, and improving the quality of life for every Kentuckian. That's why I'm excited about the launch of the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative. We owe every Kentuckian access to a quality, affordable higher education. And our colleges and universities have done tremendous work to move us forward, but they can't do it alone. To get to the heart of the challenges our students face, we got to work together in meaningful ways and amplify each other's efforts. The Kentucky Student Success Collaborative will bring together educators, institutions, and businesses and government leaders to share resources and expertise on a scale our Commonwealth has never seen before. Together, we will create programs and resources to improve graduation rates, close equity gaps, and enhance workforce development. All this is great news for Kentucky as our economy is on fire with new economic development announcements we're making week after week. I'm grateful the James Graham Brown Foundation is helping to make this happen through their generous gift in support of this initiative. Thank you also to the Council on Post-Secondary Education for your continued dedication to our students. And thank you to everybody who will lend their time and energy to this effort. You're doing a great service for our team, Team Kentucky.
Thank you. And I think, I just wanted to echo that it's really, the collaborative is designed to work in a unique way with all of our campus and community partners. So working together and collaborating will allow us to really amplify and accelerate student success, which is a part of our mission. The next thing that I wanted to share is just that the collaborative is reinforcing. You can go to the next slide. The collaborative's work is reinforcing the priorities of CPE's strategic agenda to eliminate equity gaps, improve completion rates, and strengthen workforce connections and success of all of our students and graduates. So that's just kind of the high level, what it is that we are designed to do. I did want to share a little bit about how we're going to go about that work, because I think that is what makes the collaborative so unique from other student success centers and other student success efforts, is that we really at the foundation believe that we can do more together than any of us can do individually. And through that collaboration and that sharing and connection, we'll be able to really make progress that we haven't seen before. So the collaborative will actually serve as a quasi-backbone organization, which is a term that's a part of the collective impact framework, and will be conveners, facilitators, and project support implementation for the different initiatives that our campuses have identified as priorities. So I wanted to share just a little bit more about the role of a backbone organization, or the role of the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative. We will be co-creating the priorities of our work through listening to our campus partners and community and workforce organizations. We will be helping bring people together to facilitate learning and knowledge sharing through communities of practice. We will also be listening for these common themes of what our campuses are either struggling with or they're facing persistent barriers in addressing, and we'll be able to bring in professional development or other research and speakers to help us overcome these barriers that are common across many of our campuses. We are very excited to be kind of launching a centralized hub for resource and knowledge sharing, where we'll be able to share toolkits and playbooks, research around best practices, and where a community of practitioners will be able to also share their own knowledge with one another, ask questions, get feedback, and I think build a stronger sense of the value and the purpose of higher education in Kentucky. As I mentioned, we're leveraging different technical assistance initiatives, some through national organizations such as Complete College America and Jobs for the Future, which are active right now with our campuses. And then also the collaborative will be able to support some implementation of best practices on our campus partners, as well as, especially as we get growing and really identify the top priorities and needs. We're also very excited, and we understand the whole concept of building capacity of our institutions to drive this change is going to really be based on us helping build the capacity of our leadership on campus. And I'll talk a little bit about that more later. But to just kind of share a visual to go with that, all those words about what our work is. So the campus partners are really going to identify where they want this work to start and take place. And I'm sure that their agendas are full. And so it's really important that the collaborative seeks to add value where the energy is, instead of, the initiative fatigue is such a real concern of our campuses. And when they see an organization like the collaborative come up, they think that they're going to get, kind of pulled in multiple directions. But really, we're here to listen to where their work is and to make sure that we can help accelerate that progress through, as I mentioned earlier, professional development, playbooks and toolkits, communities of practice, and then technical assistance. One of the greatest measures, I think, of the success of the collaborative is going to be our campus and stakeholder engagement with our work and our offerings. That's how we're going to know that we're adding value, because everybody's time is limited, and this is a completely voluntary initiative. And so we will know that people are valuing our work when they're engaged and they sustain that engagement. So Dr. Thompson himself has shared, that when considering institutional change, a major obstacle to progress is developing skilled leaders at all levels who have the background and knowledge to implement change. And that is why we're so excited to really focus in on part of our service delivery around developing a Change Leadership Institute for leaders at all levels, but really focusing in on that mid-level, perhaps the dean, perhaps department chairs, perhaps assistant vice presidents, who are really the folks that are tasked with convening the cross-functional teams to move toward institution-wide change. And so just to share a little bit about, this program, this curriculum is still completely in development, but we do know some of the most important components of it. Next slide. So one of those is really, we start with equity, and we start with making sure that the lens that we're looking through to understand where we're at even and where we're trying to go has an equity lens and it's student focused. Building up that leadership capacity for both project management, for data evidence and decision making, as well as for effective facilitation of these cross-functional teams. Those are all really important skill sets to having positive energy inside your initiative and ultimately getting the staying power of people who are willing to give their time to that effort because they see the positive impact. I'm really so excited. At the launch, we had an incredible showing of our National Thought Leader Advisory Group both attend and participate in our panel of these experts. And I think 7 out of 8 were able to join us at the beginning, and then 6 of them stayed for the hour-long conversation at the panel. We are going to be able to tap into these national leaders and experts based on their areas of service and expertise. And hopefully they will be incredible resources to guide both the direction of the collaborative as well as the ways in which we approach the work. So really excited to get to work with Dr. Joe Cusio, longtime friend and collaborator of Dr. Thompson, Dr. Donnie Fu Elston, Complete College America, Dr. Nick Hillman, who really has a focus on student basic needs, which is really being highlighted right now among our campus partners as a key priority in their work. And he is with the University of Wisconsin. Dr. Deborah Humphreys with our Illumina Foundation partner. And then also we have Dr. Allison Cadlick, who is a founding partner with SOVA, who is a consulting organization that has been helping us from the very concept of the collaborative move through to steady state. Dr. Adriana Kazar, who is a professor of leadership with the University of Southern California. Ms. Naima Mitchell with Jobs for the Future. And Naima also previously led the Student Success Center Network, which is a network of 16 other states that all have a similar student success framework where they have a collaborative organization that seeks to support multiple campuses. And then also Dr. Amelia Parnell, who's with NASPA, a leading professional development association for higher education. One of the most exciting announcements is honestly that our team is on board. So both Dr. Beth Ann Pennington and Ms. Phyllis Clark have joined the collaboratives team. They are 2 weeks in, and we are just so excited. We're drinking from the fire hose, but we're just, they already have leadership roles, and they're really ready to go and get started on these assignments. So Beth comes from Hazard Community and Technical College, and she was previously the Dean of Retention Services there. She has extensive experience working throughout the KCTCS system, and I am just so excited for to leverage her expertise in that area and others. And Ms. Phyllis Clark was most recently the Vice President of Student Affairs at Simmons College of Kentucky, where she did literally every job under the sun, and previous to that was with the University of Louisville in the Cultural Center. So this is just a really diverse and dynamic team that's going to be able to provide the backbone support for our campuses that we envision the collaborative to be able to do. So just a quick snapshot of what's next. As I mentioned, we have our campus visits are active. We've already had one, we have one coming up Monday, 2 more are scheduled, and we're very excited to get out to these campuses, listen to their teams, and hear how the collaborative can best support their priorities and challenges. We are also, the deadline is today for 2 of these technical assistance initiatives, both the Jobs for the Future and Complete College America, and we have been communicating with our campus partners, telling them more, answering questions, and seeing if this is a good fit to help them move their own strategies forward. We are incredibly excited to launch our first community of practice around student basic needs in early December, and we're reaching out to our campus partners now to invite them to join us for that work. And then this is something that I'm also very excited about is we're working through the process right now of exploring a technology platform that will allow us to create a statewide online forum for our practitioners, for faculty, for even high school guidance counselors and college admissions folks to connect, ask questions, receive answers, share resources, and just find all of this information in a centralized location. This is going to expand our engagement and really expand our reach across the state. And we're extremely excited about the potential here. And then, of course, we have our annual Student Success Summit and the Kentucky Change Leadership Institute, which we'll be getting, we're starting to work on now for a spring launch. So, the entire vision and purpose of this collaborative is both, we're trying to do something different here. We want to almost address the system that is holding these challenges in place. And that is one of the fundamental differences in the way that we're going about our work that I think will help position Kentucky as a real leader in this education and student success work. Ultimately, though, the goal is to improve the quality of life of folks throughout the Commonwealth. And we're really excited to be able to do that. One thing that coincided with our launch event on Monday was the launch of our website. So I do hope that you'll go ahead and take a look at kystudentsuccess.org. You can browse around. I mean, it's still a lot of basic content, but we have the infrastructure now, so we can start sharing out all of the great work that's going to be coming up. And please do join our newsletter if you would like to stay up to date. That is a link at either on the Contact Us page or at the bottom. I think the footer of every page has the registration link for the website. So thank you all so much, and I am happy to take any questions if anyone would like to ask.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing what is going on and a little bit about what was held on Monday as your launch, and we appreciate that opportunity to hear a little bit about it.
Thanks for having me.
Now we're going to move on. Recently, Kentucky was selected to join another initiative focused on student success. Kentucky's team will focus its efforts on adult learner, and at this time, Lee will tell us a little bit more about what to expect.
Thank you, Chair Harper. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes. We just wanted to let folks know that Kentucky has been chosen as one of 4 states to participate in what they're calling the Educational Attainment Academy, which is meant and designed to help states focus and plan and develop strategies around key areas of need. Well, as we've talked about today a number of times, Kentucky really is focused and needs to be focused on how we can impact the adult learner in a more comprehensive way, how we can not only support and enroll adult learners, whether they're comebackers, students who dropped out or are coming back, or perhaps adults who just fell through the cracks and never made it into a post-secondary training program. So we are going to be, this is a fairly short-term effort. This is going to be a supported effort for probably the next 6 to 9 months. We have invited a team of folks from across the state to participate in a very intentional discussion with the end result or deliverable being the development of a statewide strategy around better supporting the adult learner. This, of course, aligns well with the strategic agenda and the goals of this board. So just wanted to let you know that was happening and that we will be reporting back to you on occasion with a final report and set of strategies in early fall. Does anybody have questions on that? Well, thank you.
Well, it's exciting that we've been asked to participate even further, so it sends a good message. The last thing that we have on our agenda today is the Govember campaign that is being conducted by CPE and Gear Up Kentucky. Kim and Missy, can you tell us a little bit more about that piece of work?
Sure. Good morning, and thanks for the opportunity to come share with you for just a couple minutes. Just wanted to give you a little context in case you're not very familiar with Gear Up Kentucky. We are a 7-year U.S. Department of Education grant administered by the council. This grant was our 4th state grant, and it started in 2018. Our mission is to increase the number of students in low-income communities in Kentucky who are prepared to successfully transition to and through post-secondary education. And so we are currently working with middle and high school students in 12 school districts and first-year college students at 9 public institutions. This is the first Gear Up grant CPE has had where we have the opportunity to follow our students to and through their first year of post-secondary education. So Missy is here. She is our Associate Director of Communications and Outreach. We have an opportunity as a state grant of Gear Up to be able to disseminate and share some of the resources and work that we do specifically for Gear Up students to a wider statewide audience. And this initiative is really intended to do that. So I'll let Missy share a little bit about that with you.
Thank you, Kim. Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to be able to share a little bit about the Govember campaign that is coming up week after next. So Govember is a week-long campaign that's focused on encouraging students to complete the FAFSA as well as to complete college applications. As you probably know, 'tis the season for both FAFSA and college application completion. We wanted to direct some attention to that. I'm going to share my screen really quickly with you all, and you can review some of the activities that we're going to be doing. So Gear Up and CPE are doing this in partnership, and we've also pulled in some other partners, including Kia, and we are also sharing this out with multiple stakeholders, including the Pritchard Committee, education co-ops, and a wide variety of other partners. So as I shared, Govember will be occurring week after next, November 8th through 12th, and our main activities include social media posts that focus on the areas of most concern to college going, why to go to college, what are some compelling reasons and practical benefits of doing so, how to go to college, how do you apply, what is the timeline you need to follow, how to go to college early, which will cover things like dual credit and AP, how to go to college for less. So we are going to examine all things financial aid, from completing the FAFSA to understanding the difference between things like loans, grants, and scholarships. And finally, how to choose where to go and what to study. And this is what we talk about in Gear Up Kentucky as match and fit, ensuring that students choose the right institution and the right program of study to ensure maximum success. So social media will be a large part of this. Another big part of this will be a virtual parent night that we are co-hosting with Kia on the evening of November 17th. Now, November 17th is the week after Govember, but that falls within Kentucky's Family Engagement Week, which is a Pritchard Committee initiative. So this allows us to participate in that initiative as well. So Kia will be presenting on Paying for College 101. And so we're making a big blast of this across the state. You may even see some ads that pop up on Facebook related to this event. Something that will last that we are creating as part of this campaign is a resource webpage. We are pulling together resources that cover the topics that I mentioned before. So each of those topics will have generally 2 to 3 resources that we've handpicked to share out with folks. So this is something that will live on. So students and parents who are looking for good resources about the topics I mentioned before will have one place they can go. The way that you can participate, if you would like to, is by following either CPE or Gear Up social media platforms and sharing out the social media posts that we will be providing. Does anyone have any questions?
If not, thank you so much for sharing the information today. Wanted to apologize that y'all actually are seeing my phone as I'm speaking versus my face, but I was having new computer problems with the sound, so I just went to the phone. So I apologize that. Are there any other additional comments or questions before we close out our meeting today? I know we've covered a lot, but I wanted to open it up to the committee.
I just want to thank everybody for their great work. Congratulate them on the great product. It's really impressive.
All right, thank you. If not, believe it or not, our next scheduled meeting, besides just the committee meeting, is not until January 19th of next year. So we've covered a lot this year, but we continue to work. So put that on your calendar, January 19th. And other than that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, before you adjourn, could I say one other item? This committee has been very busy this year, extremely busy, lots of stuff going on. And it is that committee that encompasses so much of what we do that I've admired the way you've conducted it, Madam Chair, and the committee members. The work you've done is huge. I don't know if you've taken the time really to look at the products and the outcomes, but this has been a very busy and important, obviously, committee. So I just want to thank you all for your work. And we've got the strategic agenda now ready to put to bed. So I appreciate you. I mean, it's still an alive agenda, but we're now ready to go to the next level. So thank you all, and thanks to the staff, Lee, Melissa, Grace, Travis, everybody that's done the kind of work they've done. Appreciate it.
No, I agree. Again, as committee members, we couldn't do it without the staff, so thank you all. Well, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
You in a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye and press the leave button.
Aye. You all, everybody.